sharp turn down a very narrow street. If that scares you, just do what I do on this road and close your eyes. Now you're probably wondering why these streets are very narrow. Well, these streets are narrow as a feature, not a flaw. Spanish understood it would be very inconvenient to march an entire army through a street this narrow. They also realized that the narrow street design allowed the CJs to move in from the Matanzas Bay, cooling down the city of St. Augustine in a quasi-air conditioning system. To optimize this, the Spanish would build their homes as a flat roof, one-story home with open-air windows. Much like these windows right here to the right. Those open-air windows are basically what windows look like in Spanish homes. Now, the British, when they came here, did things a bit differently. But before we talk about that, this is stop number 7. This is our last St. George Street stop for about 30 to 40 minutes. If you want to visit St. George Street, now would be the time to do so. Next to your left, go down backwards, like you go down a ladder. In 1763, Florida would become a British colony. See, Spain lost a war called the 7 Years' War. And as a concession for losing that conflict, they had to give Florida over to British control. Now, when the British came here, they would try to turn St. Augustine into a very British-looking city. Now, they did this by adding a second story to every single home, accompanied with a balcony, shutters to the windows, and a fireplace to every single home as well, and a second story, of course. Now these all successfully made St. Augustine look like a very British city, but they were all pretty much useless before the heat. Now, a group that came over during the British period is a group called the Menorcans. They're people from the Minorca Islands in the Mediterranean, along with Greek and Italian people. They were originally brought over as indentured servants to an indigo plantation to south of here. Indigo plantation failed due to yellow fever and starvation, and the Menorcans would come over here as refugees. Now, the Menorcans have been here ever since. It's actually thanks to them that St. Augustine is the oldest continuously occupied European settlement in America. Thanks, Menorcans. Now, moving on from the British period to the Gilded Age of America, let's talk about Henry Flagler. Henry Flagler was a wealthy oil tycoon. He co-founded Standard Oil with J.D. Rockefeller. He was the second richest man in the world at his time. He came down here to St. Augustine to turn it into a nice little tourist town. Now, to do that, he had to get rid of some old buildings to build hotels. One of those old buildings was Grace United Methodist Church. We used to sit in a wooden church building downtown. When Henry Flagler came up to him and said, "I'll tear down your old building if you sell me that property and I'll build you a new one." The Methodists agreed that the Grace United Methodist Church was constructed over to the right. In 1888, the cathedral facility of the Catholic Church would be severely damaged in a fire. Henry Flagler would foot the bill for its extensive renovation. Word was getting around that Henry Flagler was just building churches for people, and it wasn't long before the Baptists wanted on the action. The Baptists came up to Henry Flagler and said, "Can we have a church, please, Mr. Flagler?" And Henry Flagler said, "No." However, the Baptists were pretty persistent. Eventually convinced Henry Flagler to give them a piece of land. They just had to pay for the construction costs. He did just that, and the ancient City Baptist Church was constructed to the right in 1895. Now, when Henry Flagler first came to this part of town, this is all pretty much farmland. He would purchase it up for dirt cheap and develop it in his own image, which included these homes to the left and right. These were mansions for executives of the railway and hotel companies, respectively. Henry Flagler would also built this church coming over here to the right as well in 1890. This is the Flagler Memorial Presbyterian Church. Henry Flagler had a daughter he loved very much named Jenny Lee. She was pregnant with her own daughter, Marjorie. Now, Jenny Lee suffered medical complications giving birth to Marjorie that led to both of their deaths. Henry Flagler would order the construction of this building to the right in his brief Actually, Henry Flywood is buried here now, along with his wife, first wife, his daughter, and his granddaughter. This is your stop to exit to your right, going down backwards. If you go down the ladder, this is Flywood Memorial Presbyterian Church. Henry Flywood didn't come here to build churches. He came here to build luxury hotels. You see, if you were one of those, like elite, rich, wealthy people back in the 1880s, you would come down to Florida for the winter, because there's a good chance you would be from up north, and those northern winters, well, they're pretty terrible. Think of it like the original snowbird. Now, the problem was there wasn't much in terms of accommodation for the rich and powerful here in Florida. Henry Flywood would often change that when he built this building right here to the right. The Ponce de Leon Hotel, built in 1888, the first of Henry Flywood's grand hotels in Florida. It had hundreds of rooms, its own dedicated art colony, and it had a lot of amenities that other hotels simply didn't have, including running electricity. This building right here to the right used to house DC generators that would power electricity throughout the entirety of the Ponce de Leon. Now, electricity was installed into the ponds by a close friend of Henry Flywood. You may have heard of this guy. His name was Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison isn't the only famous person to walk the halls of the ponds. Other famous guests include Mark Twain, Teddy Roosevelt, and Grover Cleveland. As right apart to the right of the building is actually the former ballroom of the Ponce de Leon. It is a beautiful ballroom with multiple gold chandeliers, a arch-painted ceiling, and multiple rows of unique wood-carved furniture sets. It's also surrounded by those Tiffany stained glass windows. Each window is worth about $3 million. Over here to the right, you'll notice the Ponce de Leon is built out of a fairly unique material. Concrete. Okay, so concrete isn't so unique to us now. There's concrete there, there's concrete there, there's concrete everywhere. However, in the 1880s, it kind of was. Henry Flywood wanted to build his building out of a material that was very sturdy, capable of withstanding Florida hurricanes and fires and any other thing that may damage the building. Went off to find a new method just up the street. A gentleman named Franklin Smith built his vacation home here in St. Augustine. Over here to the left, the Villa Zoraida in 1883. I built it using a method called the poured concrete method, where you take a wooden mold, you fill it up with some concrete, and you stack it on top of each other until you eventually get a building. Now, Franklin Smith was inspired greatly by the Moor cities of southern Spain, which were like the strongholds of Islam within Europe for hundreds of years. Modeled his own home after it, decorating the interior with a whole list of items from the Middle East. Those items are on display inside the Villa Zoraida Museum, which contains a whole host of beautiful artifacts, including a 2,400-year-old Egyptian robe made entirely out of cat hair. This is your stop at the Villa Zoraida. Open may ring the bell and exit to your right. Going down backwards and you go down the ladder. Now they say the cat rug is cursed. Those who walk upon it are doomed to die. I think I would die from allergies. Run away, guys. Now right across the way you'll see the Ponce. It's an absolutely beautiful building. That is because it is built by Carey and Hastings. If that name doesn't ring a bell to you guys, Carey and Hastings would go on to build the Grand Public Library in New York City. This is actually their first building, built in a very beautiful Mediterranean style. characterized around all Henry Flowers buildings here in Florida. The Bronx going on is a beautiful building. There are a lot of things to see, but there weren't a lot of things to do. Compensate for this bit of an oversight, Henry Flowers would begin construction of a new hotel right across the street to the right, the Hotel Alcazar. Now, the Hotel Alcazar was the party/entertainment hotel for those staying at the Bronx, but it's currently home to the Leitner Museum right now. The Leitner Museum was established in 1948 by Otto C. Leitner, a Chicago publisher who collected a whole host of antiquities, producing one of the largest collections of basically anything in the world. The guy had everything you could think of. Items from ancient Egypt and ancient China, mystical items of medieval Europe, including strange instruments you've never seen before. Also, a whole host of other beautiful art collections, including the world's largest collection of stained glass windows. Also, there's a whole host of sculptures and statues from the Gilded Age of America, dating back to the Roman days. They're all inside the Leitner Museum. I call it the Louvre of Florida. Exit to your left, go down backwards like you go down ladders. Stop number 10, the Leitner. Hotel Alcazar was the party/entertainment hotel for those staying at the Ponce de Leon. So what were those entertainment options inside the Hotel Alcazar? Well, you had two live symphony orchestra bands that would be playing all day long, so there was never any silence inside the hotel. You also had a whole host of Russian baths, Turkish baths, spas, and saunas for people to relax in. And inside you have one of the largest casinos of all in Florida, located on the inside. This casino had hundreds of casino tables and much, much more for those that gamble their life savings away. Also inside the casino building was the world's largest indoor swimming pool for its time. Now if you want to get an idea how big this pool was, we'll look over here to the rounded part to your left. Everything below those rounded windows is how deep the pool is. It would run all the way to the other side of the hotel. Now that pool was actually filled with water from a natural well that fell 1,400 feet under the surface of the earth into a natural Florida aquifer, meaning that all the water in the pool was sulfur water. Gross. These parking lots over here during the time of the Hotel Alcazar actually used to be tennis courts. People would come around here and play tennis for hours every day. And there was even a beautiful smokestack here for a generator building. All that was knocked down in the 1970s when they made that building City Hall. Now we're going to be entering a different part of St. Augustine called Lincolnville. Now, Lincolnville was established in 1866 by African Americans who had just been emancipated from slavery. It's actually the home of the African American community of St. Augustine, and during the 1960s it was the hotbed of the Civil Rights Movement. And here on the left you'll see this white building. This is the former dentist's office of Dr. Robert B. Haling. Now, he was the only African American dentist in St. Augustine, the only dentist with an integrated waiting room, a World War II veteran, and a prominent activist here in St. Augustine who had organized many protests throughout the city during the Civil Rights Movement, and remained an activist until his death in 2013. Over here on the left is Cora Tyson's house. She's still alive, by the way. She's over 100. Wow. Cora Tyson was a civil rights activist and a teacher in the 1960s. She actually housed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in that house when he spoke at the church to the right across the street. The Trinity Independent Church is one of several historically black churches that Dr. King gave a speech at here in St. Augustine. Now, during the period of segregation, it was actually illegal for African Americans to gather in large numbers in public. To circumvent this law, leaders like Dr. King would have speeches inside churches instead, trying to get around those laws. However, civil disobedience was a huge part of the civil rights movement Anyway, leaders like Dr. King will lead massive protests throughout the city. One of the most famous examples happened on the street right in front of us. Dr. King, along with hundreds of other civil rights activists, will lead a massive march right down this street over to downtown St. Augustine. Give me a moment, folks.
Dispatch, all bridge street is blocked off. Kind of stuck right now.
The civil rights scientists would march right down the street to downtown St. Augustine where they would be met with violence. Dr. King was actually arrested for organizing that protest. It's the only city in Florida he was actually arrested in. Now, going over here towards the left, you're going to see one of two remaining orange plantations here in St. Augustine. That is the Laha Plantation House. It's a bit of a picture out there. It is a historic property though. If anyone wants to purchase it up and restore it, it belonged to P.B. Dumas, the brother of Alexander Dumas, author of the Three Musketeers. Here to the right is Whedon Street, named after Dr. Whedon. Dr. Whedon was the personal physician of Osceola, the Seminole warrior. The Seminole people against the American government. They're the Seminole Wars here, have I said Seminole? Now, Osceola and his right-hand man Wildcat would be captured by the army at a false surrendering ceremony. Taken as prisoner and held here in St. Augustine at the fort. Now, Wildcat was actually able to escape from the fort by starving himself to the point where he could squeeze through his prison bars and climb down the side of the fortress. Osceola was less than fortunate. He was taken to South Carolina where he would die of malaria. Now, Dr. Whedon did what he did to Osceola's body, what that is. Fortitude, says the Lord, tour. Go ahead and pick our Ghosts and Gravestones tour. We can look all down it. Right here to the left. This building was originally built in the 1910s as a diesel generator plant. Over in the 1920s, it was converted to an ice plant, producing ice for the entire community of St. Augustine. Back in those days, you had to have ice delivered to your home in a truck much like this one coming over here to the right. Well, not only through the 30s and 40s, but by the 1950s, people started having freezers in their home. You could make ice for them. This place would close down and remain empty for decades until about 8 years ago. So folks would purchase it and open the St. Augustine Distillery. The best distillery in all Florida. They make whiskey, rum, gin, you name it, they got it. And if you don't believe me, you can take a free tour of the distillery, which provides free samples. Yes, that's right, guys. Free samples of the alcoholic beverage can be found here at the St. Augustine Distillery. It's their stop, just exit to your left, going down backwards. Go down the ladder, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, guys. There's also a restaurant here called the Ice Plant. It's a 1920s themed restaurant. Cook you up with some good food with ingredients from local Florida farms. Dispatch is 8 and 11 and 6 rows of 8. For those of you just joining us, welcome aboard. My name is Pete. Please keep your hands on the seat and legs inside the vehicle during the tour. There's no smoking, consumption of alcohol, or vaping permitted on board the trolley. We also ask that you guys please wear face masks. Face masks are required on board the vehicle. We'll be on our way. Now, about 100 years ago, plenty of factories would have been set up in this location. Obviously, you have the old ice plant over here. Now, that was not the only factory here. You see, there's no industry that's quite contributed to the growth of Florida like the cigar industry. Quality's Cuban cigars were one of our most famous exports, right next to origins. Every city in Florida had a cigar factory in it, and St. Augustine is no exception to that. All the cigar factories coming right here to the left. It's this brick building with the cigars on it, with a white bottom. That is our old cigar factory. It was originally built in 1903. Now, back in its heyday, it made about 5 cigars for 12 hours a day. After World War I, the popularity of the cigar would begin to decline as a result of the growth of the cigarette. That, accompanied with the Great Depression, would cause that place to close down. Apparently opened up offices for local businesses. Now, in Henry Flagler's time, he built the railroad to this location. This is where the Florida East Coast Railway ran through. Built that using mostly prison labor. I learned about that at stop number 1, the old jail. He's a big fan of using prison labor, though. Now, one of the buildings that was built here to accommodate for the railroad is this pink and tan building coming over here to your left, soon to be your right. That was the old train depot building, but it's now home to the San Sebastian Winery. San Sebastian Winery, some of the best wine in all Florida. Don't believe me? You can take a free self-guided tour with free taste testing of the wine product. If you want to get yourself some wine or grapes fresh from Orlando Farm, exit to your right, going out backwards. This is stop number 12, the San Sebastian Winery. Now, you will be greeted by a horse and carriage at this location that will take you to the Monteleone or the Hotel Alcazar, whichever one you are staying at. And that's where you would begin your 4 to 5 month vacation here in St. Augustine. Now, all the buildings here did revolve around the railroad coming through. Where this police station is right now actually used to be the location of Florida East Coast Railway Hospital. This hospital built by Henry Flagler to accommodate for employees of his railway company. For a couple of cents out of your paycheck every month, get full health care coverage. Seems like a good deal until you realize it's a couple of cents in 1890s money. That would have been about a third of your paycheck. Now moving on from medicine, let's talk about something a little bit more healthy for you. Who here likes chocolate? Raise your hand if you're a fan of chocolate.
Yes.
1, 2, 3.
4.
4. 4 of you like chocolate. The rest of you are lying to me. Don't worry, guys. I won't tell anybody. I'm taking you to a chocolate factory. That's right. I'm taking you to Whetstone's Chocolate Factory. They've been making premier chocolate here in St. Augustine for over 50 years. And it's some of the best. The Food Network calls Whetstone's some of the best chocolate in America. You can take a guided tour of their chocolate factory here at this location to the right. Next to your right, go down backwards, we can go down letters. Stop number 13, the Whetstone's Chocolate Factory. King Street. As they make this right, if you look down King Street to your left, you'll see 3 identical buildings. Those 3 identical buildings are the former headquarters of the Florida East Coast Railway. The Florida East Coast Railway was the brainchild of Henry Flagler when he first came to St. Augustine. The furthest the railways went into Florida was Jacksonville. Went out to build the railways all the way from Jacksonville to St. Augustine. When he did that, our city was transformed from a backwater into a hip tourist spot. He wasn't going to stop there. He built his railways all the way from St. Augustine to Daytona as a bomb coast. He still wasn't done. Went out to build his railways all the way down south in a small little town called Miami. Needless to say, Miami isn't so small anymore. Not thanks to Henry Flagler, though. He built his railway all the way to Key West. Now, Henry Flagler developed the Florida East Coast to be what it is now. He built this state. It all started here in St. Augustine in the 1880s. Thanks to Henry Flagler, I have a job. Over here on the left, you'll see the Parkland House. That is one of 2 remaining orange plantations here in St. Augustine. It belonged to Dr. Andrew Anderson, a close business partner to Henry Flagler. So here tonight, you'll see that you're also vacation home here. But it's not the only building he built in this location. intended to be a competitor against the Ponds across the street. And, well, it didn't do too well as a competitor. Opening day for the Casa Monica had a grand total of 2 visitors. Casa Monica would be purchased by Henry Flagler, who would operate it as his own hotel for a short time. Till the 1930s, it eventually closed down. 1968, this building was converted into a courthouse here in St. Augustine. It operated as a courthouse until the 1990s. A gentleman named Richard Kessler, a wealthy hotel developer from Orlando, would purchase the building, extensively refurbish it, reopening the Casa Monica. One of the most luxurious hotels in all of St. Augustine. A low-end room there will cost you about $300 a night. That's a low-end room. Now, coming here towards the left, you're going to see this white monument in this plaza. That plaza is the Plaza de Constitucion. The monument in the middle is dedicated to the Spanish Constitution of 1812 that granted a liberal democracy to Spain, abolishing the monarchy. Well, monarchy was restored in 1814, and those monuments were ordered to be destroyed by the monarchy, but St. Augustine refused to follow through with the order, making the last kind of its monument in the world. Going to the entrance on the left, you're going to see a statue of Ponce de Leon. That statue was donated by Dr. Andrew Henderson to the city of St. Augustine. That statue is supposedly life-size. I don't know about that. Mr. Ponce was about 4'11" in real life. As you go through, you'll see that rifle as another monument donated by Dr. Andrew Henderson. It is dedicated to soldiers from St. Augustine who would fight in the First World War. Now next stop is stop 14, the Cathedral Basilica. Home of the oldest Catholic congregation in America, founded in 1565. This original building was built in the 1770s, extensively refurbished by Henry Flagler in 1888, which included the addition of that clock tower. It's right next to St. George Street. Stop next to your right, stop number 14. There's a ticket booth right over there.